Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday of week 5. I hope that all of you are well out there in the world as well as you can be. First, an announcement just to get started. I know that with the pack-back trouble last Sunday, some of you may not have been able to post until late, like after midnight. And what happens when you post late after 11:59 p.m. on Sunday is that it counts as your answer for this week. And so at some point along the way, then your grade gets messed up because it's still counting points, but it counted last week as being a missed opportunity. So please do let your TA know if you did post last week and that it was running late. And then I will, your TA knows what to do in that case. And so we'll figure it out over time. So that's my only announcement for this morning. Give me 1 second here. Thank you for your patience. So is today's opening meditation preparation as settling, whatever you'd like to think about it as. I'd like you to think back. To this picture that we looked at on Monday. And as I go through this reading, I just want you to think about and even take notice of your own hands. Open your awareness to the hand's journey through time. This was once a fin in the primordial seas where life began, just as it was again in your mother's womb in this lifetime. Countless adventures since then have shaped it. This hand has connected with wind and tree as it refined its intelligence. This hand, your ancestors are in it. Ancestors who learned to push up on dry land, to climb, to reach, to grasp. The grasping hands of primates are an adaptation to life in the trees. The common ancestors of all primates evolved an opposable thumb that helped them grasp branches. And as the grasping hand evolved, claws disappeared. And today, like us, most primates have flat fingernails and large fingertip pads, which help them to hold on. From there, then, to making baskets, chipping rocks, gathering plants, gathering seeds, harvesting and planting them again, making fire and carrying it, banked on those long marches through the ages of ice. It's all in that hand from an unbroken succession of adventures. Similarly, open your awareness to this hand's journey through your particular lifetime. Ever since it came out of your mother's womb, that clever hand has learned so much. Learned to reach for breast or bottle, learned to tie shoelaces, learned to write and draw, learned to wipe tears. You know, there are people living now who believe they are worthwhile and lovable because of what this hand has told them. 2, there are people living now who will be healed in mind or body by the power that this hand allows to flow through it. And there are people living now whose last touch in life will come from this hand. and they will be able to go into their dying knowing that they are not abandoned. Take a good long look at your hands. They are a history book of where you've been and everything that you've touched and worked for. Think of the handshakes that you have shared, those you have hugged, and pause for a moment to remember how that felt. Some weak, some strong, some soft, some rough. Through their hands, you felt some of the other person's character and even the kind of work they've done. Remember how your hands feel when you hold a baby or hold someone of any age. Your hands are not only strong and capable, but they are filled with love and beauty. Take a moment now and take in your hands. So here it is, the tree of life. Can you imagine a gathering of all species across all of these groups and families? What would happen if the creator asks, whoever that creator might be, a higher being, asks, who's best? Who's best on this chart? So let's look at some examples. Are the plants the best? Plants are snagging photons that are moving at 186,000 miles per second. Plants begin every single food chain on this planet. Plants, are they the best? Or what about the worms? Are worms the best? They may seem gross, but these are the decomposers. These are the little things that run the world. If worms were not doing their job, the earth would be full of dead stuff, dead animals, dead leaves. Everything that dies needs to be decomposed. So are worms and decomposers the best? What about horseshoe crabs? Are horseshoe crabs the best? Horseshoe crabs are arthropods that live in marine and brackish waters. They're not true crabs, but they are considered living fossils. Horseshoe crabs have been pretty much like this on this planet for the last 450 million years. 450 million years, horseshoe crabs have been around. Humans have been here 200,000 years. Our ancestors have been here 6 million years. 450 million years. And so it happens to be that natural breeding of horseshoe crabs in captivity is really difficult. They need to be out in the wild to continue their life cycles. Are horseshoe crabs the best? How about this? What the heck is this? Are bacteria the best? This is bacteria photographed by a scanning electron microscope. Are bacteria the best? Bacteria as a group have a remarkable repertoire of capabilities. They can swim like animals, photosynthesize like plants, and decompose dead organic material like fungi. Bacteria have pioneered into existence all of life's essential metabolic processes: photosynthesis, oxygen breathing, fermentation, nitrogen fixation. Biologists now estimate that that Earth may house as many as 1 trillion distinct species of microbes. So insofar as bacteria have been maintaining a vast global network, exchanging genetic material, adapting and innovating for almost 4 billion years, a legitimate one-word answer to the question, what is life? The answer might be bacteria. They initially populated our planet and they have not let go. They have not relinquished their hold. The clear implication is that our evolutionary ancestry traces back to Earth's bacteria, and that we humans live on a planet that is run for and by invisible microbes. They created this biosphere, this whole thing that we enjoy. It's because of bacteria. They made all the soil. They set the conditions for the evolution of multicellular life, including us. Actually, right now, at this very moment, bacteria are all around you. They're on your phone, they're on your water bottle, they're on your hands before you wash them, and they're on your hands after you wash them. Bacteria inhabit the outside surfaces of your body with hundreds of thousands of them per square inch on your legs and arms, your trunk, your face, as well as being inside us. Not only is the multitude out there, out here, but the multitude is inside. You are a multitude. Your body is a swirling and pulsating ecosystem filled with a wild assortment of creatures. Almost all of these animals inside of you are microbacteria. So tiny that 1,000 of them fit on the head of a pin. So just one example of that. There are an estimated 300 different kinds of species of bacteria that live inside our mouths. 300 different species. This photo was taken by a microscopy expert, Steve Geschner, who took swabs from inside his own mouth and placed them under the scanning electron microscope. And he revealed the bacteria growing on the cells of his tongue and his cheek. While some bacteria can cause gum disease and do bad things in our mouths, these others are there all the time and they can be beneficial. They are beneficial to us. Steve's research showed that some of the species are adapted to the environment at the tip of the tongue. Some prefer the back of the tongue. Others inhabit the cheek pouches, and yet others feed on the plaque on our teeth. This photo has been colored to show the different kinds of bacteria. The bacteria in your mouth are not this color, just to clarify. But these 300 species inside our mouths only scratch the surface of what's going on in our bodies. In fact, if you were to count all the cells that comprise our human body, it would be somewhere between 30 and 40 trillion cells in our body. And then if we tally up all of the microbes that live in our bodies and on our bodies, those microbes actually outnumber all of your humans. Let me say that again. Our cells, human cells, are way less than the number of microbe cells that are in and on our bodies. So you may think of yourself as a separate individual, but you are more accurately a walking bacterial colony. And when it comes to the DNA, the master molecule directing your body processes, a mere 1% of your DNA is of human origin. 1%. The other 99% of your DNA resides within your bacteria. So consider this. Have you been conditioned to see bacteria as enemies? How is it with you? Are you on friendly terms with your bacteria housemates? Or do you tend to associate them with dirt and disease? If it's the latter, it's not surprising. Most of us have been socialized to view bacteria as our enemies. We don't often talk about this flip side of bacteria. What if rather than seeing bacteria as villains, what if we were to expand our consciousness and view them mostly for what they overwhelmingly are? They're symbionts. They're working with us. They're essential for our health and our well-being. Through this lens, bacteria are rightfully seen as the primary operating system for all life, including the life that animates our own bodies. In fact, we might go so far as to say that bacteria are our friends. So if we look closely in the gut biome of that bacteria, studies show that the composition of our gut microbiota, those itty-bitty life things that are living inside our guts, influence our levels of contentment. So almost all of our serotonin and dopamine, those good chemicals that we've talked about that our body creates, actually those neurotransmitters that are associated with pleasure and well-being, they're actually produced by microbiome inside of our guts. It appears that by regulating the production of these two neurotransmitters, the serotonin and the dopamine, our gut bacteria may exercise the power to impact our mood. Being anxious or relaxed, being withdrawn or outgoing. So when researchers at McMaster University inoculated the bold, excited mice with gut biomes from the shy mice, the bold mice became timid and shy. And when they performed the opposite experiment by inoculating the shy mice with the bold mice, then they became more gregarious and adventuresome. So the flip side, or an additional part to this, is that how we feel influences those chemicals inside our body influence how we look as well. So similarly, when the intestinal microbes of the obese mice are put into those of the lean mice become obese. So these microbiomes inside of us are shaping all sorts of things. Now, the experiments are just done on mice, you're right. And yet they're mammals, just like you and me. Their biology reflects our own. So that's a lot of power and capability that these bacteria have. Maybe they are the best. Might want to write down this quote here. There is no solitary free living creature. Every form of life is dependent on other forms. So as these assessments of superiority and inferiority are based on arbitrary criteria, so how long can they live, what do they do on the planet, it doesn't really make a difference, because we can sidestep that bias simply by acknowledging that humans are not superior or inferior to the rest of the family of life. Rather, the process of evolution has produced Earth's tree of life, the whole thing, The tree has a multitude of branches, each with its own evolutionary line. The buds of these branches are species. Our species, Homo sapiens, represents one bud on one branch, no better, no worse than the millions of other trees other buds on these trees' branches. I want you to take about 5 minutes in your lab groups and talk this over. What's going on for you right now? So we'll come back together and continue. with this totality of species, the vast range of life strategies, competencies, it constitutes the wonder and magnificence of life on Earth, not the one particular attribute of any particular one species. In the end, all of us, fungi and ferns and falcons and fish and fox, we're all made of the same stuff. We're all unique intelligences, all interacting and fitting together in a way that makes a dynamic tapestry. We are not separate from, but we are participants in this life's web, coming from both science and the world wisdom traditions. We belong to Earth. But this intellectual understanding of this connection is not enough. What can we do to live this connection, experience it, embody it? Requires that we're all willing to recognize and respect the more than human world that we dwell as part of. Let's dive even a little bit deeper here. So owls. Lots of people think owls are pretty darn cool. They're able to fly silently to catch their prey and to avoid predators when the world is quieter at night. They have hearing capacities that greatly exceed our own. And those eyes, look at those eyes. If our eyes were in the same proportion in our heads, we would have to have eyes as big as softballs. And with 5 times as many light collecting cells in their eyes as we have, their nighttime vision way surpasses ours. And I think it's because of these eyes that they get the reputation owls are so wise. And yet it's just that they're unique. They have a unique sensitivity. They have owl intelligence. They have owl skills all built in. So are they better? Or are they just different? Are our skills different or are they better? How can we think about this? So we've talked a little bit about, on Monday, we talked about plant and tree intelligence. We just talked a little bit about horseshoe crab intelligence, worm intelligence, bacteria intelligence. But it's really that each of those groups is sensitive in a different way. So now think of your friend group, think of your family, and understand that you have people around you that have different sensitivities as well, different capabilities. So some people are sensitive to rhythm or color or number patterns or bird songs, or some may have the healing power of touch. They might have an emotional intelligence. They might be able to read lips. They might be able to sense subtle changes in energy. They might be really good at reading nonverbal communication. Those are all body intelligences. They're all outside of our brain. They're all ways that people can be differently sensitive to the world around them. So flourishing, whether we're talking about owls or horseshoe crabs or people, it depends much more than IQ. So the emotional and social and intuitive intelligences play central roles in individual development and cultural well-being. Capacities exist in different forms throughout the non-human living world, as well as through the human world. We have the opportunity to support the exploration of the richness that these sensitivities create. Living beings know their world. And recent scientific breakthroughs have just begun to shine a light on the many forms that knowing takes, the intelligences of the living world. So in your text, you'll read about umwelt, U-M-W-E-L-T. Umwelt, it's a way, a being's particular way of being in the world. So what does it take for us to be sensitive to that, whether we're talking about other species or our own? Just like the idea of plants communicating with each other may have seemed absurd, but now might not be so strange, so it is with the notion of interspecies communication between plants and humans. This is a picture of a healer in Madagascar. And when asked to know which of some of the 15,000 species of native plants is best for treating a certain disease, these healers say that they wait for the plants to tell them. In practice, they walk about in the forest with an open mind, humbly asking the plants for assistance. Eventually, a certain plant will capture their attention, in effect, calling out to greet them, declaring itself to be the proper remedy. And although this may seem very bizarre in our Western scientific perspective, many of these indigenous practitioners are highly successful healers with their specific sensitivities. So these connections exist all over the natural world. So check out this diagram. What we've been working our way through and with, right, in this class is speciesism. The idea that being human is a good enough reason for humans to have greater moral rights than non-human animals or beings, plants. So the shift from ego of us being at the top of the triangle to being eco, where everything has the same rights. All species are part of the great whole. Everything is interconnected and interrelated, and all have important parts to play in the ecosystem. All of those intelligences are vital. So that word speciesism, it's an ism. When you talk about an ism, it's a belief system, a distinctive practice, a system, philosophy. It can be typically a political ideology or an artistic movement or a social movement. And this is tough. Sexism, racism, it's the notion that there's superiority of one thing over another. Homophobia, communism, socialism. It's a story of separation. All of these things are stories of separation. It's really separation from relationship in one way or the other, separation of understanding perspectives. So those sometimes people that are working for racial or sexual equality may find this comparison insulting, and that's not my intention. My intention is to draw our attention to the fact that there is social importance in understanding and appreciating and seeing the beauty in others, no matter what or who that other is. Some argue that speciesism is natural. It's biologically natural to treat one's own species favorably. Virtually all non human animals treat members of their own species better than those of other species, except that we have the power to choose. We have the power and wisdom to choose. So, going back to dualism, these word pairs are different. Sometimes we default to what makes us superior in our heads, but if we dig in with all our equipment, our head and our heart, our gut, we can see things differently and shift our story, shift our beliefs. In Lakesh, I am another you. We have the choice to change dualism, moving from either or to both and. So we're going to take another break here because this is a lot and this is heavy. And I'm getting questions in the chat that I think that there are things that you all want to talk about. And so we'll take another 5 minutes to break out into your groups and digest and process and work with this material and share your honesty, share your truth, share your sensitivities so that you can be seen and so that you can see others. Take time now for that connection. We have the choice of how we see. So take in this image. What do you see? What do you think? What do you feel? This is one of the giant redwood trees. They live to be 1,000 years old or older. Think back to those mother trees that give life to the trees all around them, the plants all around them. And I am open to people having different opinions, always. I understand that because I am the one that's in charge of putting these together, that it might come across as me pushing my views on you. But my job as an educator is to help you to consider ways of being, choices that we make. So my question is, do we have the right to do this? Do we have the right to assume that it's ours to make the choice? Do we own this tree and the land that it sits on? Do we have obligations that have been put upon us by the 7 generations before us and the 7 generations after us about the choices that we make? What we do know is that trees take care of us and that we do have connection. And so what do we do with that information? How do we move forward with choices like this? So going back to this image from Monday, what comes up for you when you see this image? A hug is a way to express care and tenderness, respect, compassion. So would changing our way of seeing and open our sensitivities make a difference? If not, why? Or if so, how? After all we've been through, after all we've been through, being us and trees, after being in relationship for so long, where are we now? What about the where are we now relationship between us and worms, or us and horseshoe crabs, us and owls? How could opening our sensitivities, opening to others' sensitivities, make a difference? Other animals' presence in the world has just as much validity as does ours, and perhaps more, as they were here first. They are foundational to us. They were foundational to us. So looking at this shape one more time, we can see our role. A question has come in, why in the ego side are women next to whales? It's a really interesting question for you to consider. See how you feel about that. See what comes up for you about that. How we understand our role will shift our way of being in the world, of being in the ecosystem. Alexander von Humboldt, in the 18th century, he was a scientist, an explorer. He was world famous in his time, and he was the first one to explain the fundamental functions of a forest for that ecosystem and for the climate as a whole. So the 18th century, people knew how valuable trees were to our climate. And he was the first to claim that the world is a single, interconnected organism. This is the concept of nature as we know it today. According to von Humboldt, everything, to the smallest creature, has its role, and together makes the whole, in which humankind is just one small part. So, of this tree of life and all those buds, we are all made of the same stuff. We all interact and fit together, whether we're really aware of it or not. Everything is connected. It's the totality of these species, the vast range of sensitivities as species and as individuals, that constitute the magnificence of life on this planet. And so today I ask that you consider this as you move about your days and see how this is an opportunity for you to see. Thank you very much for being with me today. I hope that you all have a lovely day.